I've got college football on the brain.
Let's do it.
Heard a little bit of a clip from the new Stampede podcast last hour with Vince Young talking about Arch Manning. We'll reset that for you coming up bottom of the hour. But obviously in Vegas and in Charlotte, it's all about the Big Ten and the ACC. Did I play something for you from the national voice, whether you like him or not? Colin Cowherd, he has picked his national championship opponents. Here we go. Here's little Colin talking about.
So I think you got about 5 or 6 teams. Here's my national championship bubble. I think Bama, Clemson, and Notre Dame are really close. I like Clemson's coach and quarterback. Listen, Penn State, let's talk Penn State. I think Penn State and Texas are going to play for the national championship. I think Penn State, first of all, they went and poached Ohio State's defensive coordinator.
All right, so we talked about that yesterday. So he says Texas and Penn State in the national championship.
He's been saying that for a little bit now. He's really riding that.
Okay, that's...
Yeah, give me that, as Jack would say. Eat that up. I would like the Longhorns in that one.
But, because again, I mentioned there was big game James Worthy. What James Franklin has not been is big game James.
No.
He does not win big games. But as we talked about, and it's why, I don't think his job is in jeopardy, but I will say, like I said last year about Ryan, well, listen, there is a point where they're 12 years in. Okay, if they lose to Ohio State and Oregon and then don't make a run this year, there has to be a part of the Penn State fan base and the big money that says, this guy can't get it done. Like, at what point, this is why Ryan Day would have been fired last year had they not had a 12-team playoff. Like, yeah, you're doing a great job because Ryan Day's beating everybody, but he's not beating Michigan now. And what else do we do? The best roster money can buy was Ohio State last year, and you still couldn't beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And then that, obviously, the 12-game playoff changed that. James Franklin has to prove to his own fan base that he can, because you can argue for the 4-16 record against Michigan and Ohio State, the 1-14 against top 5 teams. No, there's an argument to be made that his roster, he had some good players, but his roster on whole wasn't as good as those teams, right?
Yeah.
Well, this year you can't say that.
No, this year you can't.
His roster is better than Ohio State's. His roster, player for player, when you check boxes, is better than Oregon's this year, bringing back all the production and adding in the portal and all. So this is on you, James Franklin, and this is why it was on Ryan Day last year. We've given you everything. We went and way overpaid for a defensive coordinator. In Jim Knowles, stolen from Ohio State. This is on you, big game James.
Yeah, it's a year to prove that you can.
Because I would argue that if you don't do it this year, there's the buck stops there. Like, what else can we do?
Yeah.
Maybe if that's fair or not, but it's like, well, then we're just spinning our tires here because this guy can't beat good teams.
Yeah, no, it's totally fair. I mean, that's the thing. Can he go win a real, true big game? I think they need to see that. Even if they don't win the title, I still don't think his hot seat is as hot as what Ryan Day's was. But yeah, no, the buck could be stopping there. The money could be stopping coming in because he's getting all buy-in from donors and whatnot. Oh. They're adding on to the stadium and the facilities. The facilities are not top cream of the crop when it comes to all these big programs like Texas, like, Ohio State, whoever else. They're getting money pumped into that program, and he needs to go prove, hey, I'm worth the investment. The one thing is, like, who are they going to go get when you have 10, 11-win season, you're making the playoffs in this new format?
That would have been the same question in Columbus, but the same thing is like, well, and Ryan Day would have had a job the next day somewhere.
For sure.
But there comes a point of diminishing returns now. If you can't...
But Ryan Day was winning big games. He just wasn't winning the game, which was Michigan.
Well, that's the point, though. If Ryan Day was on the hot seat, this guy never wins big games. Now he has the superior roster in the conference. National pundits like Cowherd are picking him to win. Well, you better win some games.
No, you have to.
And as we went through yesterday with Penn State, you have a bye week ahead of Oregon at home. Right. You got a bye week ahead of Ohio State,
and
even in Columbus.
If you lose those 2 games, you're in the playoffs. Let's call it out. They're 10-2. They're still getting in.
Let's hear from James Franklin. Now, James Franklin was at Media Days in Vegas yesterday. Listen to him. He's not too happy. He doesn't like it that it's all the way out in Sin City from their little hamlet in State College, PA. He doesn't think it's good for the Big Ten brand.
A lot of our beat writers did not come to this because they couldn't afford to get out here. And the majority of our teams are near Chicago, where this used to always be. The majority of our teams are near Indianapolis, where this used to be. And it creates a different environment. I walk around the lobby. I don't see any signage. I don't see anything for the Big Ten. I don't see people getting autographs. I don't see it's a different vibe and it's a different feeling. I think that other conference, when they have their meetings, there's essentially a press conference every single day at the end of the meetings. It keeps people talking about that conference at a time of the year and makes them relevant. We're not doing that. We need to be talking about the Big Ten and our programs and the things that we have done and making it as accessible to everybody as we possibly can and connecting with the fans.
All right, so there's his point. He's got a good point.
No, he does. I agree.
Vegas is a long way from State College, but you have a western flank now of your conference.
Exactly.
And you're trying to appease that a little bit.
4 teams are around there. It's pretty hard to get to anywhere from Seattle, Washington.
Because I'm sure there are folks in Seattle and Eugene that are like, James, it's pretty expensive to fly to Chicago for us. It's pretty much easier to Vegas. I can promise you that. So let's, you got 18 teams in this conference now. But his point about keeping it on the front burner, I think, is smart.
I do too.
But let's remember why that is in a large measure. The Big Ten is not an ESPN property.
It's not.
So ESPN does not cover the Big Ten like they cover the SEC, which is, and the ACC, which is their property.
Those 2 properties, right.
And, people, you can go to Fox, but all those shows just got canceled, like all their daily shows. But he is right about the press conferences. No, Big Ten's not, no one's crying for the Big Ten as far as revenues and exposure and the big brands. But he's basically right about that. But let's not, the 4-letter network, they know that's a Fox property, and they're in battle, and it's a business. They battle with Fox, so they do cover Big Ten media days, but not nearly like they cover SEC media days. But yes, to his point though, SEC does do a great job of making it a show. I was there.
Yeah.
There's kids and people. You walk into the College Football Hall of Fame last week, and there's 100 people in the entryway waiting to sign autographs, and they're wearing because they know which teams are there that day. They're looking for Steve Sarkisian or Arch Manning, or they're looking for Kirby Smart there in Georgia. And he, if you've been to the Mandalay Bay in Vegas, I mean, it's just one of the 10,000 things that are going on in that casino and on that day in Vegas.
My favorite part of that I think just at that audio that you missed is, when we been at the old places, I was signing babies, or he said something about babies with the fans being there, which I thought was hilarious. That
visual. If you put in Chicago, you'll have the fans showing up, and
absolutely,
that is a fair point. I don't think
it's a fair point, but what your point is right. ESPN does the best job of it when it comes to the exposure that they get. And I went home yesterday, started watching a little TV, catch up on what's going on in the ACC, from Louisville to Brett Key and what's going on at Virginia, at Georgia Tech. Like, they do a better job of that. CBS and Fox are the ones that are now, tied to the Big Ten. And listen, Vegas, like you said, there's numerous things going on in Las Vegas, Nevada, and the Big Ten signage is not going to be as relevant as what it is in Atlanta, Georgia, what it is there in the ACC in Charlotte, North Carolina. It just is. It's just what it is. And
and it just means more.
It just means
more in the SEC. Okay, so we'll take your thoughts. Also, Dan Lanning, Oregon, they bring back, they're 16th out of 18 in returning production in the Big Ten. So I think that's why I took them kind of under, because they're one of those 10.5 over-under teams we've talked about this week. I think they're maybe a 9-win team, maybe 10, because they do have tough road trips this year. But he made a point yesterday, and some will call it sour grapes because his team got hammered by Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. But he pointed out that he's not the first one, but the Ducks had 25 days off between their Big Ten championship game and then that game in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State.
Looked like it.
And we talked to Austin Novosad this week, who was there, and said, we came out a little bit flat-footed. I mean, whereas Ohio State was at peak, right? They had just smashed Tennessee and carried that momentum right into the Rose Bowl and picked it up and rolled, and the game was over by halftime. 41-21 was the final. But Lanning says, look, all 4 teams that had a bye lost. There's something to that, and he is pushing that the college football season should end by January 1st. And I don't know if that's calendar-wise possible, but he's advocating using the 0 week, which is in 30 days from today. Use that week for everybody. Everybody plays a game. Eliminate one of the bye weeks potentially, but get this thing to where you're playing that. Whether they do the play-in games or your championship games, in and around Thanksgiving, and then get into the tournament.
That week of Army Navy, they're playing those championship games.
Yeah. For sure. Or no, the week before. They want to advance it. So
is that the week that it's on?
Yeah. Well, the Army Navy game is played after championship Saturday.
Oh, it is. Okay.
That's the standalone game after the Heisman Trophy is awarded and all that stuff. Or
that first round started then is probably what he's saying then of the playoffs, right?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, so the first round of the playoffs should be in early December.
Yes.
Whereas the championship games.
Yeah.
And again, you'd have to do a lot of work on that. There's already contracts with TVs. As CB told us, it's already on the books to play the national championship game in 2027, 2 years from now, on January 25th.
Oh.
So it's getting further, not closer.
Gosh.
And so, again, this is where we need leadership in college football. We need coalition in college football because I would agree. I mean, you should be done with this as close to New Year's Day as possible. Let the NFL have January into February. You dominate December if you can with your playoff. But
yeah, when it's week 6,
January
17,
1,
and 18 are happening in the NFL, that should be your best game.
January 1 is probably too ambitious. But January 10th, be done by the 10th, is probably where you should be. And that's where that's where the Cotton Bowl was. That was the day of Texas-Ohio State last year. Because you could have the Final Four, the semifinal games on New Year's Day-ish or around it, right?
Right. The Rose Bowl still could be on New Year's Day.
Sure. And then, go ahead and kick the championship game 10 days from then or whatever it needs to be, 7 days from then. But I don't think anybody in this point, in this day and age of college football, needs to be off for 25 days.
That's a lot of days.
I do think it's a detriment to your team. Well, I don't think it's you'll say it's a benefit, but man, there's a point of diminishing returns, days off, where it becomes a problem. And we saw that. The 4 teams went 0-4. Now, one of them was Boise State playing Penn State, right? One of them was Texas playing Arizona State. That game went to overtime.
That game was close.
That game went to OT. But none of the 4, and of course, only Oregon got their doors blown off.
They looked like a team who hadn't played in a month, right? In that beginning of the game. They and credit to Ohio State, best team. They win it all, but they did not look like they were ready at all. Rusty in the beginning, to say the least.
Yeah, and Ohio State changed some things up on them, and give Ryan Day and his staff
that game was
some credit.
over as it started.
Yeah,
done.
For sure.